Tonight, for the first time, we are broadcasting from Saudi Arabia, a powerful Gulf state caught up in this war, a war with conflicting and unclear objectives.
We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further.
Donald Trump's mixed messages send oil markets on a wild ride.
We haven't seen this type of volatility really ever.
Plunging global markets into uncertainty, and the strikes continue.
And here in Canada, ice fishers stranded on thin ice speak out about the terrifying wait for help.
Many people were calling to say goodbye, like saying, tell the kids I love them.
23 people drifting into Georgian Bay, the story behind the dramatic rescue. A CBC News investigation finds Canadian Armed Forces members on a white supremacist dating site.
They are getting access to training, weapons, secure intelligence.
Who else we identified using the site nicknamed by experts as Tinder for Nazis.
From CBC News, this is The National with Christine Birak and Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We are in Saudi Arabia's capital, granted rare permission to be here to show you a different front in this war with Iran. Here's where things stand tonight. The Arab states of the Persian Gulf remain under fire. Airstrikes continue to target Iran. The selection of a new supreme leader there being celebrated by some in that country. But the war is causing global markets and oil prices to swing violently, driven in part by Donald Trump's arguably tangled comments, calling it all just a short excursion that was, in his words, very complete, only to then say that the U.S. had not yet, quote, won enough. For now, it is the missiles, the drones, the warplanes, the weapons doing the talking. Katie Simpson shows us those unclear signals from the U.S. president about when or how he expects this war to end.
What comes next in the American and Israeli-led war in Iran? The message from the American president is mixed.
We took a little excursion because we felt we had to do that to get rid of some evil. And I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion.
At times, he stressed short-term in a speech to Republican lawmakers and during a separate news conference.
Major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete.
He also said the same kind of thing to a reporter earlier in the day, which reassured investors. Markets closed with modest gains after a week of brutal losses. But once Trump was questioned about when this conflict might come to an end, that is when the message shifted.
We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further. And we're going to go further.
Trump left the door open for plenty more military intervention. There's also this from the Department of War. We have only just begun to fight. No mercy, posted hours before the president spoke. Trump was asked for a clarification.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared?
Well, I think you could say it both.
The president's tone also remains combative and defiant.
We will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world.
Trump's justification for the war, his goals, and the timeline have shifted greatly over the course of this conflict, as has information about who is responsible for an airstrike that hit an Iranian girls' school, killing more than 150 people, including children. While Trump says a Tomahawk missile was used, he denied knowing who is responsible.
Whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
No other country in the conflict uses Tomahawks. Even members of his own party are now demanding clarity.
Let's investigate it. Let's be honest. Let's be transparent.
Trump's comments were described as nonsense by a spokesman for the IRGC, adding Iran will determine the end of the war.
And Katie, Donald Trump reacted, I think, for the first time to Iran's pick of the new supreme leader.
Yeah, Trump says he's disappointed, saying it will just lead to more of the same kind of problems. He also declined to say whether the U.S. will try to assassinate the new Supreme Leader, saying it would be inappropriate to comment.
All right, Katie Simpson in Washington. Donald Trump did say he wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, but the vital oil corridor off Iran's coast, depended on by so many economies, including this country's, remains closed. Nisha Patel now on the rising panic that has prices whipping back and forth on every hint from the region and the White House.
A key part of the world's oil supply is still under attack. A major refinery in Bahrain on fire. The latest in a series of strikes on energy infrastructure across the region. Concerns about how long the disruption will last, unnerving oil markets. Crude oil prices soaring 30% Monday morning to almost $120 a barrel, the highest since 2022.
We haven't seen this type of volatility really ever. We saw it during the Gulf War in the early 90s. We saw it with COVID, and now this. This is the most volatility that we've ever really seen.
That volatility captured the attention of global leaders. G7 countries debated releasing emergency oil stockpiles to ease supply pressures.
I want to be very clear on the fact that we are ready to take necessary and coordinated steps in order to stabilize markets.
Then Donald Trump hinted that the war could end very soon. The comments calmed investors. By the end of the day, price gains had evaporated. A stunning reversal as crude oil tumbled to below $90 a barrel. But by evening, Trump was less definitive on the war's timeline.
I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level.
While he suggested he'd force Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or use U.S. warships as escorts, until the war ends, shipping operators may be reluctant to take the risk.
Every day that this lasts, we should expect, on balance, that oil inches upwards.
Pressure is building on the global economy. Shipping freight costs have quadrupled in the past week. Countries that rely heavily on energy imports are seeing shortages. Gas prices in Canada have spiked dramatically, and it could take time to get some relief.
We aren't going to go back to the levels, the $65 that we saw last month. It'll probably remain elevated throughout the driving season.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard responded to Trump tonight, saying Tehran would not allow even 1 liter of oil to be exported if U.S.-Israeli attacks continue.
And so, Nisha, if the Strait were to be declared reopened fully, how long would it take to adjust?
Adrian, experts say it would take 2 weeks to get shipping traffic in the Persian Gulf back to normal, and it could take up to another 2 months to ramp up oil production again.
It's a long time. All right, Nisha Patel, thank you. In Tehran today, large crowds formed in support of the new supreme leader. From northern Iraq, Margaret Evans has more on Iran's latest show of defiance against the U.S. and Israel and the human toll of the expanding war.
The king is dead, long live the king. And if the baton passes from father to son, so much the better, say thousands of Iranians celebrating Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's new supreme leader, no matter how tarnished the mantle. This will make them fear the name of Khamenei again, says this woman. Our new leader came to avenge the blood of our martyred one. The choice of Mojtaba is regarded as a defiant act aimed at U.S. and Israeli threats of regime change.
Mojtaba is a symbolic leader with sending a message of continuity and resistance. I don't think it's going to alter the battle plans.
The battle has already found its way across the border into Iraq, with now daily attacks fired by pro-Iran militias into the U.S.-aligned Kurdish north. Here, a house of mourning in the Kurdish capital, Erbil. A mother cries for her son, and a father in the no-man's land between duty and grief. Taher Abdullah's son was killed when a drone attack hit the Erbil airport where the 31-year-old Wallet worked as a security guard. Abdullah believes the civilian airport was the actual target, not a nearby U.S. base. Iran is getting very weak, he says, so it's hitting everywhere, including the Gulf and Jordan. But he also blames the Iraqi government in Baghdad, saying its Shia leadership allows pro-Iran militias to attack the Kurds. Iranian militias who target us using drones, he says. We are between two fires. It is a position that Kurds in this region have found themselves in before. A precarious one, made even more so by the spreading conflict next door. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Northern Iraq.
Israeli airstrikes continue to pummel Lebanon, including targets in both central Beirut and the city's southern suburbs. Israel says it is targeting Hezbollah strongholds and commanders in a campaign that began a week ago. It's killed more than 400 people, according to Lebanese officials, and displaced hundreds of thousands. Hezbollah killed 2 Israeli soldiers yesterday and continues to fire into Israel. Some missiles intercepted over the center of the country earlier today. Australia has granted asylum to 5 members of the Iranian women's soccer team after they were labeled wartime traitors for not singing the national anthem at a tournament. But as Mira Baines tells us, there are still fears Iran could retaliate.
Iran's women's soccer team refusing to sing Iran's national anthem at the Women's Asian Cup, seen as an act of defiance against the country's regime. The team arrived in host country Australia just before the outbreak of war in the Middle East. Backlash was swift, with the presenter on Iranian state media branding them wartime traitors, spurring fears of persecution. Then growing calls for their protection.
Australians have been moved by the plight of these brave women. They're safe here and they should feel at home here.
The Australian government granting humanitarian visas to 5 of the players who requested help. U.S. President Donald Trump had been putting pressure on Australia, making his own offer of asylum.
President Trump rang me this morning just before 2 a.m. We had a very positive discussion.
Albanese says planning had been underway in the days before, and asylum is also being offered to the remaining members of the team.
These athletes have now become, if not a cause célèbre, they're certainly political pawns.
Human rights advocate and retired Australian soccer player Craig Foster says even though the players have been given the choice to defect, it may not be an easy decision.
These are always complex situations because of families back home. Some of the players have children and the like. So even if they feel unsafe and would prefer to stay in Australia, they may not be able to.
This Iranian-Canadian journalist sought asylum in Canada after receiving death threats over a cartoon mocking a regime leader.
Iran is supposed to be sending its national football team to the World Cup. But I'm not sure if the regime is comfortable with that.
He says this act of defiance could have more repercussions as the FIFA World Cup approaches. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
So fear of retaliation is everywhere in this region right now, Christine.
Adrian, you are in Saudi Arabia to tell that country's story in this widening war. What is the kingdom's role here?
Well, Saudi Arabia, I mean, it's arguably the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's the biggest economy in the Arab world. It's a huge U.S. ally. And there's huge anger here right now. 2 civilians were killed yesterday. Tonight, Iranian drones were aimed at oil fields here. And the country has cut oil output because it simply cannot get the oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran knows it can't win militarily, but it certainly can inflict pain that damages an economy. So the Saudis sent Tehran a message today suggesting Iran is risking escalation, and in escalation, it's Iran that would be the greatest loser. No sense yet that Saudi Arabia will join the fight offensively, despite some calls for it to do so. But we'll dive a little deeper into what that could look like later in the program. Christine?
Thanks, Adrian. Here in Canada, a late evening debate in the House of Commons on the Middle East focused on the Liberal government's stance on the war and the accusations the Prime Minister has given mixed messages.
He has flipped and flopped more than 4 times, having 4 contradictory positions.
We support preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. We support international law.
Pierre Poilievre also accused Mark Carney of hiding from the debate. The Prime Minister's itinerary says he's attending an event for Ramadan tonight. A survivor of a dramatic rescue on Ontario's Georgian Bay is sharing his terrifying story tonight. He was among 23 ice fishers left stranded on the frigid water when the ice broke away from shore. Jennifer Yoon shows the moments it happened and the stern warning from police.
Water's opening up, ice is opening. Everybody.
A late season ice fishing trip gone horribly wrong. 23 fishers on a melting piece of ice broken off from shore, drifting into Georgian Bay with no escape.
Many people were calling to say goodbye, like saying, tell the kids I love them.
Kevin Fox says he could see the ice shrinking by the minute.
The ice was starting to break up. You could see water all around that big 7-kilometer chunk of ice.
Hey, got him.
Ontario police were eventually able to rescue everyone, airlifting people 3 at a time to a golf club nearby. Some treated for minor injuries, including hypothermia. Police now asking the fishers, what were they thinking going onto ice that looked like this?
No fish is worth your life or the lives of people who have to rescue you. This rescue requires significant resources, and frontline responders were placed at considerable risk.
Fox says he should have gotten off the ice earlier, but he thought they had a solid plan.
We were aware when we went out the possibility of ice drifting, but we felt confident that if the ice broke, it was one big solid chunk, it would drift to shore.
This one of several incidents on Ontario's icy waters in the past 48 hours. In Hamilton, 2 young people saved by a bystander after falling through ice Sunday. And Toronto police responded to reports of a windsurfer stuck on ice Monday. Police asking people to use common sense, look at the weather conditions, and don't go out on unsafe ice.
Maybe I should have planned better. Maybe I should have got off the ice sooner.
Fox says he's learned from the experience. He's thinking about bringing an inflatable dinghy with him next time, but he's not going to stop ice fishing.
This is our passion. We're fishermen. We love to fish.
Even, he says, if that includes some risk. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
The family of a 12-year-old girl critically injured in the Tumbler Ridge, BC shooting is suing OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. Maya Gabala's parents say she was shot in the neck and in the head. Their civil suit alleges OpenAI had specific knowledge of the shooter using ChatGPT to plan a mass casualty event. The company has faced fierce criticism after it did not report the shooter's account to authorities before killing 8 people, including 6 children, 1 month ago. Canadian businessman Frank Stronach is now facing 2 fewer charges in his sexual assault trial. The Crown is withdrawing 2 more counts, saying it couldn't prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. The 93-year-old now faces 7 charges. Stronach initially pleaded not guilty to 12 charges related to 7 women. His lawyers started their defense today. New York police have charged 2 men with federal terrorism-related crimes after they allegedly threw homemade bombs during an anti-Islam protest outside the New York City mayor's residence over the weekend. Officials say it's being investigated as an act of ISIS-inspired terrorism. Mamdani is the city's first Muslim mayor. A new scam is taking hold across the country, and it's costing Canadians thousands.
They just put the blame and they don't even try to help.
Go public on the tactics being used to access your cash. Live Nation agrees to a settlement that would force a cap on U.S. ticket fees.
If all those conditions are met, consumers would be in a better place.
Will catching a show cost you less? And a moment of incredible precision at the 2026 Paralympic Games.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Beautiful.
We're back in 2.
Police in Los Angeles have arrested a 35-year-old Florida woman after she allegedly opened fire with an assault rifle outside the Beverly Hills mansion of pop singer Rihanna. The Grammy winner, her husband, and children were home at the time, but police say no one was hurt. A new scam is spreading across the country. Fraudsters promise students a break on tuition, take their money, then pay the school with stolen credit cards. It happened to a Vancouver woman who said no one was able to help until our Go Public team stepped in. Erica Johnson picks up the story.
$2,798.25. Mira Burgess counts the charges made to her credit and debit cards, totaling more than $37,000, all of them fraudulent.
Hello?
It all started last fall when she got a call she thought was from TD Bank's fraud department. A scammer told her to open her banking app, share one-time passcodes to reverse fraudulent charges. Problem is, she was unknowingly approving them. The next day, it twigged.
Went into like a full panic, very emotional. I couldn't believe I just got scammed.
Go Public has learned Burgess was part of a new scam popping up across the country. Fraudsters promise students a break on tuition in exchange for an upfront payment. Then they pay the school using credit and debit cards stolen from people like Burgess. The payments were made to a local private university, but TD told her it couldn't do a chargeback because she gave out passcodes.
They just put the blame and they don't even try to help.
She asked the school to give the money back. It said TD had to ask for a chargeback. Vancouver police said investigations like this are difficult to prosecute, told her to go back to the bank.
So it leaves me in this circle of frustration.
Burgess appealed TD's decision, but it still blamed her.
Seems like an unreasonable position for the bank to have taken in circumstances when they confirmed that she was a victim.
In Ottawa recently, some MPs recommended new legislation to make the banks more responsible for fraud.
We need to have a proper reimbursement process that is a cost of doing business, and I think we have to put that onus where it belongs, which is on the banks.
Liberal and Conservative MPs on the Federal Finance Committee voted down the proposed changes. After Go Public contacted TD about Mira Burgess, the bank said it would reimburse her $37,000, calling it a goodwill gesture. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. A CBC News visual investigation has linked members of the Canadian Armed Forces to a dating site catering to white supremacists.
When somebody is in the Canadian Armed Forces, they're held to a higher standard of conduct than a civilian would be.
How the users were identified and the response from the Department of National Defense.
Here in Saudi Arabia, a kingdom seeking to expand its reach is now caught in a war it did not start.
People are going to be afraid. Companies' contracts are going to be, again, in limbo.
What is next in this war in the Middle East? More from The National in Saudi Arabia next.
Here they come to the finish line. Eriksson.
Canadian skier Kalle Eriksson, along with his guide Sierra Smith, winning bronze in the men's Super G vision-impaired race at the Milano Cortina Paralympic Games. It's the pair's second medal in Italy, winning silver in downhill on the weekend. After 3 days, Canada has 7 medals, 1 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze. In the U.S., Live Nation, the parent company of Ticketmaster, reached a tentative deal with the Justice Department in the early days of its trial around ticket prices and competition practices. Magda Gabriel-Selassie now with what's on the table and what might be left unsettled.
It's a giant in the live music industry accused of squashing competition and driving up ticket prices. But now, Live Nation and its company, Ticketmaster, have reached a tentative deal with the U.S. Department of Justice, less than a week into their trial without admitting doing anything wrong.
It is a surprise.
Yeah, surprise. In the proposed settlement, Live Nation says it will cap ticket service fees at 15%, end exclusive booking deals with 13 U.S. amphitheaters, make it easier for artists to use other promotional services at its venues, and more. The company also says it created a $280 million fund to pay for damages. The deal is getting mixed reviews.
If all those conditions are met, consumers would be in a better place.
A real trial would give us findings of fact. We simply have a non-event now. You have someone paying money to make the case go away.
What's not part of the deal? Separating Live Nation from Ticketmaster. That's led some states vowing to keep up the fight in their own cases. New York's Attorney General said the deal fails to address the monopoly at the center of this case. We cannot agree to it. And some question whether fans frustrated with ticket prices would see some real relief.
Are we going to see a difference?
No, I would say no. We've got to do our own homework. We have to govern the markets that we have with the tools that we have in both our interests, but also to reflect the values that we have.
Even if the judge in the U.S. signs off on the deal, it's unclear what the impact will be here. In recent months, a Canadian consumer group took an initial step to sue Live Nation and Ticketmaster with the goal of breaking up the company. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back to Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, one of roughly a dozen countries to find itself under fire as war rages in the Middle East. Attacks by Iranian drones on oil-producing facilities right here in Saudi Arabia.
So what the Iranians are trying to do is raise the price in any way they can, raise the price economically, raise the price politically to end the war.
With its energy infrastructure turned to targets and the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed, Saudi Arabia cuts oil output at 2 of its major oil fields.
The war in general, it's not good. Not for anyone. No one is winning. Everyone is losing.
As Lindsay Duncombe tells us, this war threatens to shake the stability of the Middle East's largest economy.
2 drones have hit the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh.
This is not the message Saudi Arabia wants the world to see. The kingdom is a target, and Iranian attacks aimed at American infrastructure and the oil economy threaten the image of stability and prosperity the Saudis are working so hard to sell.
People are going to be afraid. Companies' contracts are going to be, again, in limbo.
Besma Mamani is a political science professor at the University of Waterloo. She believes the Saudis would be happy to see the Iranian regime fall, but there's worry about the cost.
They'd be very happy to see it topple over in a heartbeat, but they don't have an interest in seeing full-on chaos ensue.
It's a complicated dynamic. Iran and Saudi Arabia are longtime adversaries, representing different sects of Islam. There are reports Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman urged the Americans to act against Iran. But the American action has brought consequences to the kingdom. Iranian drones hit the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, employees sent home. The Saudis intercepted missiles aimed at American military bases, but haven't stopped them all. 2 international workers were killed and a dozen injured near a U.S. airbase. An American soldier, injured early in the fight, died from his injuries. Missile attacks shut down the kingdom's largest oil refinery, and tankers remain stalled at the Strait of Hormuz. Chaos, contrasting sharply with ads promoting tourism.
Places that make you feel alive, like nowhere else.
This is going to set back the branding efforts of that at minimum, and certainly spook many investors and others who were thinking that this was a safe place to invest.
We see the world tomorrow. The kingdom needs foreign investment for its Vision 2030, a plan to move the kingdom away from oil dependence by attracting foreign investment in mega projects, tourism, and artificial intelligence, despite ongoing concerns about human rights.
It was a full-on, most important person in the entire world welcome.
The Americans support that vision.
I like you too much.
President Trump brought business leaders and billions in trade deals when he visited the kingdom last year. But at what cost is that friendship? At least one American lawmaker, an Iran hawk, wants the Saudis to join the fight, On social media, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham asked, if you are not willing to use your military now, when are you willing to use it? Adding, hopefully this changes soon. If not, consequences will follow. Some Saudis don't seem keen on that.
You know, the war in general, it's not good. Not for anyone. No one is winning. Everyone is losing.
We don't want to reach the war we fear. We don't want to reach the crises that Arab countries like Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq went through. People have had enough.
With so much uncertainty and the American strategy unclear, a path for peace is easy to wish for, much harder to predict.
So let's pick up on some of this with Mona Yacoubian, the director of the Middle East program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. So Mona, thanks for being with us. People have heard Donald Trump say that he thinks this war will be over very soon. What did you think when you heard that?
I had some real questions in my mind about what provoked the president's comments. I assumed it had to do perhaps with some of the significant ups and downs we've seen in the oil markets overnight and into today. I think it's important to note that in his recent press conference, the president appeared to backtrack somewhat from that idea of the war could soon be over. So once again, we're presented with a very conflicting picture of how the U.S. views this conflict and what its duration might be.
So Mona, I mean, speaking with you from Saudi Arabia, we saw a pretty strong statement from the kingdom today saying to Iran effectively, stop attacking us. You are risking escalation. And in escalation, it's Iran that would be the greatest loser. If Saudi Arabia were to retaliate, what could that look like?
You know, Adrian, it's really hard to know because I think the Saudis are in an extraordinarily difficult position. They are underscoring, of course, that a red line has been crossed, and of course that they have every right and will continue to defend themselves in every way. But I think they're a little bit anxious about joining, at least openly, offensive operations against Iran. And I would argue that the president's waffling today on whether or not the U.S. will stay engaged on this is exactly the kind of sentiment that feeds their anxiety, that if they were to go forward in a frontal and overt way and join offensive operations against Iran, they would be left perhaps to deal with the fallout on their own. And I think that is a primary concern for Riyadh.
I get the sense that a lot of these countries feel like they're already dealing with some of this fallout on their own, as you say, because if you look at some of the targets, you know, airports, hotels, water plants, hitting the very drivers of economies here, how long do you think before these relatively small strikes militarily have a totally outsized impact?
Arguably, we're already witnessing it, Adrian. If we look at some of the economic and energy reverberations around the globe, I think these countries in the Gulf in particular are deeply concerned that they're watching their plans for economic growth and integration just go up in smoke. Any notion of the Gulf as being a stable part of the world, I think, unfortunately, is out the window right now. And so I think we're already in that very scary world for the Gulf and, frankly, other countries in the Middle East.
Yeah, and that's going to ripple across oceans very soon, if not already. When you look at these Gulf states now, what is it that worries you the most about the pattern you're seeing here?
I am deeply concerned by Iran's pattern of escalation, both vertically in terms of the types of targets that it chooses to go after, the weapons it uses, the tactics it uses. So, for example, the targeting over the weekend of a desalination plant in Bahrain, and also its efforts at horizontal escalation, broadening the conflict, trying to draw other countries in, both around the Middle East and, of course, even further afield. I think that is deeply, deeply concerning. And I think that is why you're seeing the kinds of statements such as the one you referenced coming out of Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Gulf.
Okay, there's so much to watch for. Mona Yacoubian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Adrian.
Israeli strikes on Iranian fuel depots have shrouded Tehran in thick black smoke, some of it falling back to the ground is what's being described as a black rain or an oil rain. Andrew Chang, host of About That, explains.
If you're seeing headlines of oil rain falling in Iran, toxic oil rain, let me explain what they're talking about.
In a major escalation, oil storage depots and refining facilities in Tehran were hit.
It's an absolutely apocalyptic scene here. We've just made it to the Shahran oil depot, which was attacked last night in a massive wave of airstrikes.
It's not literal oil falling as rain so much as it is oily. Airstrikes on oil facilities have created these thick plumes of acrid black smoke.
The toxic smoke from the burning fuel depots has engulfed the capital and is drifting towards neighboring cities.
But you can see that the rain water is actually black, also saturated, it appears, with oil.
A lot of those toxins wafting into the air are the microscopic fragments of burning oil. Now, quick science lesson, when you think of how regular rain forms, it's not just pure drops of water. It's actually the water vapor in the air coalescing around particles of things, usually dust, which is weird to think of a lot of rain as actually like dust rain. Or if you're old enough to remember the acid rain scare of the 70s and 80s, it's kind of similar, where burning fossil fuels released toxic gases that mixed with the water in the air to create these acidic raindrops that ended up poisoning lakes and soil and killing fish and even dissolving parts of stone buildings. Anyway, so in Iran, you get all this water vapor in the air coalescing around not just dust, but also soot and ash and all those smoky junk particles, creating black clouds that produce black rain that, yes, is very bad for you. It's acidic too, and also something the world has experienced before during the Kuwaiti oil fires of the early 90s. Saddam Hussein setting hundreds of oil wells on fire, creating exactly the kind of black rain we're now seeing in Iran, one of the worst environmental disasters of our time. And we haven't even talked about the rain that falls through all the smoke of war, becoming dirtier, because yeah, those raindrops are like little vacuum cleaners pulling junk in as they fall to the earth. Now, if you're weird like me and you wonder if this oily rain can catch fire through whatever oily compounds are in the rain, the answer is mainly no, because even black rain is still mostly water, just dirty water, not falling fuel. But the black oily residue that gets left on the ground or on car windshields, pool enough of that together, and you do have the early makings of a catastrophe to health, to the environment. Maybe it could catch fire, I don't actually know, but bottom line, it's really dangerous stuff.
The Iranian Red Crescent Society has warned the residents of Tehran to take precautions against the toxic air pollution and the risk of acid rain, something that is probably much easier said than done during a time of war. That is all for me tonight from Riyadh. We'll have much more from this city, this country, tomorrow and in the days to come. Now, it's back to Christine in Toronto.
Thanks, Adrian. Coming up, the white supremacist dating site attracting Canadian Armed Forces members.
Whenever you have an extremist in the military, particularly a white supremacist, there is reason for concern.
Uncovering the profiles and the extremist views next. Hundreds of Canadians, including military personnel, linked to a white supremacist dating site exposed after a hacker leaked their profiles.
Is it possible, given what you said, that some of the people on it may not have known exactly what they were signing up for?
I would find it extremely difficult to believe.
Using the leaked data, Christian Poss-Lang from our Visual Investigations Unit found some of those profiles were tied to current armed forces members. A warning, some of the language and imagery in this story is disturbing.
This is a white supremacist dating site, nicknamed Tinder for Nazis. We analyzed membership data leaked by an anonymous hacker and found more than 500 Canadians, including profiles belonging to members of the Canadian military. Should we be concerned?
They are getting access to training, weapons, secure intelligence.
Okay, so WhiteDate has been around since 2017, and its terms of service says people with non-white genetics aren't allowed on the site. This isn't just about dating preferences. WhiteDate is based around the idea that white people need to preserve a pure bloodline.
Nordic people are dying out, and within 200 years, there won't be a person left on this planet that we could call white.
Members are often open about their beliefs in their profiles.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at is obvious white supremacist symbology. When you look at the profiles, there is a drop-down where you can select what kind of ideology you hold, including a variety of white supremacist ideologies that are very blatant and very obvious.
Is it possible, given what you said, that some of the people on it may not have known exactly what they're signing up for?
I would find it extremely difficult to believe.
An anonymous hacker leaked the site's user list and deleted its databases as part of a talk at a conference in Germany. The leak includes thousands of profiles, which we investigate using tools like Host Industries and DarkSide. And we find members of the Canadian military. This is Brogan Hale. We find he's a Navy reservist. We know it's him on WhiteDate because the leaked data shows he created his account in Esquimalt, BC. On LinkedIn, we see that Hale took a naval security team course in Esquimalt around the same time period. His social media history is pretty explicit. On his X account, he says, "Keep Canada white," shares swastikas, and says we should use bioweapons against Indians. We also find WhiteDate profiles for other military members. We don't have as much social media history for them, but we know they were on the site. Like this account from Ottawa with the username Jim. Searching the profile's email address brings up his LinkedIn, revealing his real name, Brandon Longpre. He's a corporal with the Governor General's Foot Guards. That's the Senior Reserve Infantry Regiment in Canada, based in Ottawa. Then there's this profile. It's pretty clear. It says, "I'm a communications engineering officer with the Royal Canadian Air Force." We linked the profile to Tristan Armstrong. And get this, according to his Facebook, he now works on the Future Fighter Capability Project, Canada's effort to buy new warplanes. Should we be concerned about these people being in the military?
Yes, absolutely. Whenever you have an extremist in the military, particularly a white supremacist, there is reason for concern. They are getting access to training, weapons, secure intelligence that is not meant to be shared with others. It is classified.
We reach out to all of them over email, but none of them respond. We also reach out to the military, and it tells us it's investigating because service members' online behavior is supposed to reflect the military's values and ethos.
When somebody is in the Canadian Armed Forces, they're held to a higher standard of conduct than a civilian would be. And that extends not just in what they do, let's say on base, but the views that they might express elsewhere in their lives.
We also found dating profiles for some notable Canadian white supremacists, people we've previously covered. Like Lane Palmer, an organizer with the neo-Nazi conference Exiles of the Golden Age. And Sean Beauvais-McDonald, a leader in multiple Canadian white supremacist groups. He openly calls himself a Nazi and praises Hitler. If you see anything you want us to investigate, reach out at vi@cbc.ca.
After CBC News contacted them, the 3 military members deleted or restricted most of the social media accounts, while the owner of WhiteDate did not respond to our request for comment. Coming up, a Canadian Paralympic curler threads the needle with incredible precision.
I was super pumped to be able to make that shot for us.
His highlight reel takeout next in our moment. This is John Thurston, representing Canada at the 2026 Paralympic Games, and he's about to pull off what could become the highlight of the entire wheelchair curling event. Thurston was able to knock out 2 of Norway's rocks after gliding through a very narrow gap. Now his epic shot makes our moment.
Wow. Oh my gosh, beautiful.
It was double rock takeout of our opponent's rocks while missing 5 of our own rock. Hit exactly where we needed to on the rock. It was kind of instant. They weren't very far apart, so when I hit the first one, it connected with the second one. what left us sitting 5 in the house.
Oh, I don't even know if he was dreaming of that shot.
We seen that there was a possibility there if you hit the rock right, that could be a double there. It looked very hard. It seemed like an opportunity to kind of change the end. As soon as it got off the far hog line, you could tell it had to curl more. So I was yelling at the rock to curl. It was listening.
Curl! Curl!
I was super, super pumped to be able to make that shot for us. So was the team. The place went wild when they seen that shot. It was super cool. It was great team effort in that end. I was very ecstatic. This one was a special shot. I won't forget it.
Perfection. The shot has gone viral online. Last check, it was up over 1 million views on CBC Sports. Canada went on to score 6 more points to beat Norway 9-2. They also beat Latvia, and tomorrow they'll face China, the reigning champions. Both teams are undefeated. That will be one to watch. Well, from all of us here at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Christine Birak. Take care.